we're starting to see polls come out that are pretty interesting amongst different groups. And the first one we wanted to kind of look at, I think, Logan, was Catholic voters. Now, this is important because Catholic voters in the last election cycle favored President Biden.
And honestly, let's say even pre-Obama years, but even more recently, took some more historically Catholic positions. But he has taken a lot of those back over the last 4 years.
45% of Catholics supported Biden in the same one-on-one pairing this year. But he previously, in 2020, they preferred Biden 67 to 26. I mean, it was almost 70-30.
He was one of the ones who was sort of a pro-life Democrat for a good portion of his career.
Right.
And now has gone to the far end of the extreme on that to satisfy the left base.
In a one-on-one pairing, only 45% of Catholics support President Biden. But when you start looking at Hispanic Catholics, this is where the lead kind of starts to shift and narrow. Biden only leads among Hispanic Catholics 49 to 47%. That is a tie. In 2020, Hispanic Catholics preferred Biden to Trump 67 to 26%.
Yeah, I mean, that is a giant
How
swing.
can President Biden, and we know there's going to be more Hispanic voters in probably this cycle than there were 4 years ago, just because there's going to be more people turning 18, 19, 20. There's going to be more,
Yeah, as society moves forward, that's just going to be how it is.
That is very troubling for President Biden, and that's across the country. That's not like just, a lot of those voters are in California, which will go blue anyways, and Texas, which will go red anyways. These are how you not only win states, Logan, but you also, where you've got new workforces, you've got immigrant populations, places like the Rust Belt, where people who are coming to the country and are working those jobs no one else will, are not necessarily just on the border states or states. They're in purple states. If you're going to look at what party, they never line up 100%, but if you're going to look at what party lines up more with the values of what we know in the Hispanic community, it's way more the Republican Party. It's just the Democrat Party has sold that Republicans somehow don't like immigrants, and that is just not the truth. Most of us who make up in the Republican Party come from families who are immigrants to the United States. I mean, it's not like we're all from the Mayflower. And that's how the Republican Party is still portrayed, like it's all a bunch of Mayflower.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're half the country, at least, and a lot of immigrants. I know under the Bush years at the RNC, there was a huge investment into Spanish language Republican advertising, but also staff that would go out. And the same director of that worked inside the RNC, I know, and the White House for President Trump. So I'm assuming that they did still spend the resources. They might not have gotten the same kind of attention because of his perceived anti-Hispanic, like the words he used, the way he came, and like you've got a lot of these leftist Hispanic groups that would keep these Republican Hispanics out.
Yeah.
Like La Raza and those
But
kind
you
of.
had our friends, like, I forget his name right now off the top of my head, but we had him a bunch of times on who started, like, the Lexit, like the Latino exit of voters to become more conservative leaning, who was there supporting conservative candidates all around the country. So we're seeing that. I think you're seeing that in your local communities, too, when you have these conversations. It's not, look, I feel like that it's not just like that.
There will be national advertising that if you mostly watch Hispanic television, you will start seeing closer to the elections. But if you're in states where it's close, if you're in California, you might not. But if you're in states where it's close, like Florida or any place or even in a community that's got a big Hispanic vote, so you could be just in a area of a state with a large Hispanic vote, you'll start seeing the Republican ads for Trump in Spanish. When you look at Protestants, and by the way, these are not evangelical Protestants. It's not broken down that way. It's just
anyone
people
who identifies as a Protestant.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty generic. Kind of like if you're just identified as Catholic.
Yeah, or a Christian. If you're an American Christian. Yeah.
60% of Protestants expressed support for Trump, and about 38% said they lean towards Biden. So, again,
we have an evangelicals one also, which is, I mean, much more extreme, which is 81%, as you'd kind of expect.
I mean, what's really going to change between now and Election Day that would have that 60%, 30% of them switch over to Joe Biden?
How much, I guess you could say, the amount of stuff they've thrown at President Trump, what else could there possibly be?
When I look at Protestants, and it's not the evangelical Protestants, I think these are voters who are pocketbook voters. These are voters who are, their number one issue might not be life. Yeah. It might not be the social issues.
No.
it's the economy probably.
Yeah, which is probably the majority of people.
And it's not going to be like, well, I don't like the fact that Trump's in court and all this kind of stuff. It's going to be, well, the inflation's not going down. The interest rates aren't going down like we thought. They may try to pull a political move, and maybe they will very late. But right now they're not.
RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who obviously has been that sort of third-party independence running. And by the way, the two polls have come out in relation to that. A general election poll from Rasmussen that just hit a few minutes ago. We'll cover that. But one that he put out yesterday, and it showed with a poll of over 26,000 Rizogby that were polled, and it obviously is not how it's going to roll. But it put, if Biden versus Trump, they said Trump wins by a very comfortable margin. Trump versus Kennedy, Kennedy wins in a close race, and Kennedy versus Biden, if it was head-to-head, Kennedy wins in a landslide. Now, you can say, obviously, that's
easy.
Yeah, well, because conservatives, Republicans are going to vote for Kennedy.
If you had no other option, but Joe Biden or Kennedy, you'd just vote for Kennedy.
Yeah.
If enough people even showed up, I guess, because depending on how he campaigned.
Yeah.
And I think he would probably win. I don't know about a landslide because I'm not sure people would be that excited about it.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting one. The general election poll that just dropped has three people in this race, RFK, Biden, and Trump. Trump wins with the current polling 46%, Biden at 36%, and RFK Jr. at 9%, which is a pretty sizable amount. That is a spoiler territory.
That is, where do you think that 9% is coming from?
Right.
There, that's the Joe Biden. Because if you take RFK Jr. out, most polls are showing it pretty close right now.
Yeah, that's a.
You don't get a lot of polls of Trump versus Biden with Trump with a 10-point lead if RFK is not in it. With RFK in it, and he's got Biden's now down 10 points, and RFK's got 9 of them. I'm thinking they're all coming from Biden.
They're all they don't want to vote for Trump.
That's because
it's probably because they don't want to vote for Trump, but they can't look around what's happening in this world and saying this is what we have to deal with. That's who we're going to vote for. So in somewhat, it's probably some reason that people voted for Biden in the first place. And we know that RFK is now qualified to be on 10 state ballots, including some big ones.
Right. And some Midwestern states. Yeah. And those are the states that are going to decide the election. I mean, I think he's strategically going to be on the states, if he can, that are the states that determine the outcome of the election. So he won't be in every state where he has a chance of actually winning probably the electoral ever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really need to be in those.
Oh, he was very upfront and said, in the three-way race, I lose. Yeah. By the way, he's not going out. He's not one of those people going out there saying, I'm going to win. He goes, no, if it's in the three-way race, I'm going to lose. But, could it cause a lot of dissent and a lot of interesting? I mean, he's doing a big event here next week. It is. I am curious, and he's taking very interesting points of view.